Now, North Korea is a small, poor, isolated country with very limited resources. But in my hotel room the other day, I watched Vladimir Putin, the president of the world's second largest nuclear power, make a presentation that included a slide showing a nuclear strike on Florida. Experts say he may well be bluffing to whip up his supporters, but it doesn't take a concerned scientist to tell you that the threat of nuclear war is back and with a vengeance. We'll have a concerned scientist or two on the show, and the story of a very brave young woman who escaped from North Korea when she was just 13. But first, we have a story that shows how these two threats from Russia and North Korea are connected. We got our hands on a partial copy of a report that is due to be released by the UN later this month. It was prepared by a team of experts who monitor North Korea to see if it's complying with the sanctions. You won't be surprised to hear that the short answer is no. The full report is more than 200 pages long and details a whole litany of allegations that the North Koreans are helping the Syrian government's missile and chemical weapons program, that they're selling missiles to the military in Myanmar, and are generally involved in all kinds of dirty business. The report says that the North Koreans smuggled out nearly $200 million worth of goods in just 9 months last year. This money is helping immensely to keep the regime in power and its weapons program going. The report specifically mentioned several cases where coal was smuggled out of North Korea through Russia. Now, that got our attention because we've been investigating illicit trade from North Korea for a while. In fact, we just got back from a reporting trip to Vladivostok in the far eastern corner of Russia.
Late night at Moscow's Yaroslavsky station, calling all passengers for the legendary Trans-Siberian Railway. This train is not the fastest way to get to Russia's Far East, but it is the most dramatic. It runs over 5,700 miles of track across 8 time zones, 16 rivers, and more than 80 cities and towns before arriving, finally, in Vladivostok. We were welcomed by Professor Artyom Lukin from a local state university. I asked him the question that brought us here.
We've heard reports that Russia is helping North Korea evade sanctions. Is that true?
I've seen such reports, but they're just allegations. What sense does it make for Russia to help North Korea violate the sanctions?
Lukin, who doesn't officially speak for the government but rarely disagrees with the Kremlin, told me that Vladivostok is so close to where the North Koreans do their nuclear tests that the last one shook his apartment building. This is a part of Russia the world rarely sees. Vladivostok still feels very Soviet. It's gritty, and this time of year, freezing cold.
This is the far eastern edge of Russia, where the Asian continent ends and the now frozen sea begins. And although this area may look completely blocked off right now by the ice, this is actually an essential shipping route.
Ports are the main engine of the economy here. Cars, timber, scrap metal, seafood. There are ships being loaded and offloaded everywhere. We had been tracking a Russian ship called the Vityaz. In mid-October, according to logs we had obtained, it started heading out to sea and then disappeared, probably by turning off its transponder.
It is very unusual for this beacon, this AIS as it's known, to be turned off. And that in itself is a powerful indicator of criminal activity or sanctions-busting activity.
Former CIA officer Norman Rule spent more than 30 years in intelligence gathering. Now he works for an organization that tracks international sanctions violations and has been comparing the movements of the Vityaz with those of a North Korean ship that was in the same area at the same time.
And the activities each conducted had some common characteristics. First, they turned off the transponder. Second, they left traditional shipping lanes. Third, they went to an area of water near North Korea where ships don't usually go. So now when you put this data together, this is so unusual that these two ships certainly deserve more investigation.
The tracking data doesn't reveal the nature of the cargo it was carrying, but Reuters quoted 2 European security officials who said the Vityaz transferred 1,600 tons of oil to the North Korean ship. Whatever the cargo was, Rule says these maps tell a very familiar story.
It is very likely that this was a ship-to-ship transfer, similar ships, similar size, approximately same time, going to a very unusual area.
A few days after it disappeared, the Vityaz reappeared in Russia. We wanted to see if it was still here.
We're looking for a ship called Vites.
She will check now.
She'll check? Wonderful.
The guard remembered seeing the ship coming into port, but when she checked the records, the ship's name wasn't on them.
Is there someone we can reach out to talk to who owns the ship? Do you know who brought it here? Is there a registered name of the owner or something like that? Can we go in and see it? So we couldn't get in, but at least we did confirm that the ship is in fact here. Now we have to find a way to get to it.
We did eventually find a way to get to the Vityaz and capture these images. Neither the company that owns it nor Russian authorities responded when we asked why the ghost ship wasn't recorded on the port's books.
Unfortunately, Russia has a rich history of often being an obstacle to sanctions against some of the darkest characters in the international sphere. I'm confident that the Russians can be moved to a position where they can undertake this activity, if that pressure is applied.
Last Friday, the president did raise the pressure, but not on Russia.
North Korea, we imposed today the heaviest sanctions ever imposed on a country before.
Specifically, the administration was targeting those who trade with North Korea, sanctioning 1 individual, 27 companies, and 28 ships tied to 8 countries, including North Korea and all its neighbors, except for one, Russia.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.